ahead of 2022 general election. Thank you very much, Mohesh, for joining us and taking time this evening to be with us on KTN News. Perhaps I would begin by asking you, from your vantage point, having left politics, looking at what's going on around the country, the kind of politics that is being played right now from across the board, from all political parties ahead of the nomination, would you think that Kenya is where it was a few years ago, or we have matured as a country in terms of our politics?
Well, I think we are worse off. You know, some time back, people used to do politics with a lot of respect. Today, politicians have lost discipline. They just attack each other. You don't know who is what. Because if you look at it now, the way we were doing our politics, there was no way you could see direct confrontation between the president and his deputy. This is happening today. Even some members of the same party don't respect each other. You don't know who is in which party. You don't know who is in opposition and who is in government. And you know, when a government is run like that, then it even confuses the civil service. Because even civil servants don't know which direction to take. Because they are already divided. There are some who are supporting the vice president. There are some who are supporting the president himself. So it is chaotic. It is just completely out of order.
It's chaotic. Who would you blame for this? Because it's always said that leadership is for the young. The younger generation, this is the first time that we have the younger generation taking over leadership. So where would you apportion this blame? You've called it chaotic. You said our politics, we are worse off than we were perhaps 2 or 3 decades ago.
You know, I think the Constitution also plays a very big part. Because the moment you are deputy, or you are deputy president, or you are vice president or something like that, knows that there is nothing you can do, then you are completely out of control. Your hands are tied. You see, before that, the vice president was appointed by the president, and he knew that if he doesn't respect the president or follow instructions, he can be thrown out. Today, the deputy president knows that the president cannot remove him. And because of that, he can have a number of politicians or members of parliament on his side, and the president has some. So the country is more divided politically that way. But if somebody knows that you can get rid of him, then obviously he will be a bit, you know, careful. Like, for example, I would have thought that maybe if this constitution made it clear that the moment your deputy declares or that is going to stand for presidency, he should step aside and maybe go for his campaign for the rest of the term, the second term. Because right now, the way it is today, it is difficult even for the president to operate. That's how I can look at it.
Okay, and perhaps what you're saying, if you look at the Constitution, which quarters argue that it's very progressive, I mean, the Constitution is good because that safeguard that was given to the deputy president, you know, is what enables him to do what he does, because it's the first case of a deputy president that we've had. However, looking back, would you say that this was not a good thing? And if at all there was need to relook at areas of the Constitution to review, perhaps this was one to begin with. And comparing what's happening now and perhaps the 4 successive governments that you have seen, I mean, it should be progressive. It can't be that it's a bad thing for the country.
Well, I'm telling you, this will continue even in the next government. Because you see, there are some characters, the moment they know that there is nothing you can do about them, they can do anything. You see? And this, we need to run a country as a country. And we don't have to force somebody to be with you. If people are elected together, they must know that it's their responsibility. Because today, when you look at it, the way now the deputy president is operating, it's like he's now the one who is in opposition. Because you see, you can't attack your boss directly. You see, it's very difficult because you see now, he's on his own. He says he's also elected like the president, which is true. And the president cannot do anything otherwise. And in the process, the country suffers, wananchi suffer, and even the system, the whole system suffers. Because now in the government itself, because the deputy president has his own people whom he put there, the president has his, so each one of them has people who are loyal to him personally. And the moment you have people who are loyal to you personally, then obviously things will not work.
Okay.
Because even if the president gives instructions, particularly to some people who are not his own, he won't act. He won't be able to act, you see. This is a problem.
You can't say completely the president is powerless, like his hands are tied, he can't do anything. I mean, he still has the machinery, there's parliament, there are people who support the president.
You know, it is politics. And you see, if you cannot remove your deputy, and you have seen the way it has been, even if you go to people who have been charged for corruption here and there, you never know. Maybe this thing has extended to many departments of government. You see? And the moment you have, and you see, when these people were elected, they were elected and they apportioned positions almost 50-50. So you will find that the deputy president has almost 50%, and the president also has 50%. And for him to remove almost everyone who supports the deputy president is also not possible. You see the problem? So if he had the freedom of at least getting rid of the deputy president, the way we used to have, particularly during Moi's time, that's when even during Kenyatta's time, if you are deputy vice president and you are not respecting the president or listening or taking instructions from the president, he would get rid of you and bring somebody else. And things used to work, I think, more smoothly that way. Even in any organization, including a company, if you have a deputy who is not respecting you, who cannot take instructions, that company will never prosper.
Okay, but how is
so
this?
that's one section that we must think about in the Constitution.
Okay.
Because it's going to give us problems. You know, a country like, we tried to copy things from developed countries, like America, like many other countries. But you see, Mzungu is not like us. Those ones, they follow things to the book. We, as Africans, the way more used to tell us that you will never know what is at the back of the African's mind when you are talking to him. He says yes, and yet he does not mean yes. And you can see this is what's happening today.
You are advocating for an all-powerful president, but my question still is, how is this a deputy president problem? This is the first time this is happening. Can't you allow it to happen after the next election so that we see if at all it will be manageable?
Well, but you can see the last 4 years, the last 4 years, since the last elections, it has just been campaigned throughout. We cannot have a country where people are just campaigning all the time. They don't work.
Okay.
And you see, this is a problem we are having. But if we had a system whereby the moment you want to campaign for presidency, you just step aside and let somebody else who is maybe calmer, who is not interested or who is not going to come. You can see the way during Kibaki's time, when Kibaki was working with Mzee Mudiawori, we never had these problems. Even Kalonzo, although he had ambitions of standing as president later, but he never showed the ambitions. So things used to work more smoothly. Even during Moi's time when we had Saitoti, we never had these problems like what we are having today. But you see today, you know, there's nothing bad like your deputy having meetings and sometimes attacking you directly. And you are the president and there's nothing you can do.
Okay. What would
if you are a bad president, you can cause problems for the country.
If you had an opportunity to perhaps speak to the president about this and what you have alluded to, what would you advise the president to do? I mean, we are in that crisis. The government is in that crisis.
Well, but there's nothing he can do, even if I told him. Even if I advised him, what can he do?
What would you tell him? What would you tell him? What would you tell him to do?
Well, but you see, there's nothing I can advise him to do because he cannot act. The much he can do is to sack his ministers, maybe his permanent secretaries, but he cannot sack the president, I mean the vice president, deputy president. He can't. So there is very little he can do, or even if you advised him, what can he do? Nothing. Because unless he wants to put this country into chaos, which I'm sure he doesn't want to.
I mean, there's a lot of things. For example, would you advise him to ignore the deputy president the way he's been ignoring him? Would you call for a meeting with the Jubilee Party to address the issue? Would you call the deputy president and sit him down and read the Riot Act?
You know, you can pretend to be ignoring, but when things touch you personally, you can never ignore as a politician. You see, like this one now, it's almost personal. Sometimes I watch TV and you find some members of parliament who are supporting the deputy president attacking him directly. Directly. Not even in Proverbs. Directly. And quite a number of them have been doing it for a long time. You see? So those are things that can create problems for a country. If we have a president who wants to act, things can be chaotic.
Okay.
But I think I don't think I can advise him to do anything otherwise. I think he's trying to do his best by ignoring it. Although some of us who are used to who have seen the government run properly, and people had respect for each other. That's why you have these problems down, even to ordinary people. That's why we even have problems in schools. Because when you have leaders who don't respect the leadership, that problem will go down to the smallest person. It will go to schools. It will go to departments. It will go to government institutions. You see? Because they're seeing people misbehaving. That's why you find that sometimes you find somebody, that's why you find that some people even fighting the chiefs in the countryside. Somebody gets up and he just slaps the chief. Some people also, when they see a policeman walking in the streets with a gun, they try to grab that gun from him. It's because the leaders are not disciplined. Because if there is no discipline, it will go down, right down to the ordinary person.
Okay.
And I'm sure you know that there is no respect whatsoever these days.
This is a lesson that the presidential candidates who are currently campaigning are learning, including the deputy president. Going ahead to 2022, what is the most important lesson that the candidates should look out for their running mates?
Well, the candidate should look for maybe somebody who is calmer, because you see, if you just take somebody because you want to win, winning only is not good enough. And you can see some of us who have been on the side. You look at the first 5 years, which they claim to have worked very well. I don't think they've done much, because most of the promises they made the first 5 years were never fulfilled. And even now, in fact, I would say, because you see now the president is more or less running this country on his own, he can make decisions and he can make things move. But before that, you look at the companies like, what we are now discovering from companies like Power and Lighting, what's happening? When they have been loading bills on wananchi, stealing from people. Companies like Kenya Pipeline, which used to have a lot of money, oil was just flowing on its own. Today they are poor. When we left this, during Kibaki's time, when Kibaki left this country, the economy was a lot better. But because people, people who are in leadership, you see, when you have people who really want to get into leadership, and they know that you cannot get into leadership without making money, you will have to loot. Because there's no business where you can make a lot of money to make you win an election. And you see, you can also do these things without being corrupt, because you can have companies which you are associated with, and you make sure they win all the tenders, and the citizens don't get the opportunity to win any tender, and you make all the profit from the government. You can do that when you are in a senior position. You don't have to steal directly, but you can steal by making sure that only companies you are associated with win tenders and get big contracts when you are in a position of leadership. And that is sometimes what happens in this country.
The question on the formula for these candidates now, because you say winning is not just enough, but they have to win an election. They have to win an election at the end of the day. So how do they make sure they win an election and get someone credible?
It's a very big problem, because you see, the problem is that we are now having people. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello?
Yes, we can.
Yes, you see now, the country, the majority of the people are extremely poor. The majority of the people don't know when they wake up in the morning, they don't even know what they're going to eat on that particular day. So you can see that if you don't have money, you can hardly win an election. You will hardly get a following. When we were doing our politics, majority of the members of parliament who used to come to parliament, some of them used to be teachers, because people used to look at their leadership. They never used to have money. Today, not even one teacher can win an election. Even as an MCA, or even go to parliament. And if you have a presidential candidate who is rich, he will finance all the members of parliament that are in his party and MCAs. So if you stand on your own, the chances are that you are not likely to make it. So we are in a situation whereby we are likely, very likely, to elect wrong leaders, because people are not looking at you as a leader. They look at what you have given them. They look at your position financially. And that's why when they get there, they must loot, because you must recover that money that you spent. And that's the problem we are in. I don't know how we are going to handle that. And that's the real truth. Because if you just walk to somewhere and they say, oh, mimi natafuta kura, munisaidia wanakuambia tuna njaa. So if you have no money, utapatia wani, nani atakupigia kura kama una kitu? So we must change that culture of being paid before even registration today. These people want to be given money. Some of these young people want to be given money for transport to go to the polling station. Some of them for transport. Some of them give them money first before they register. That's why the registration is low. It's not because of anything. You have to pay them to register. And if you have to pay to register, you have to pay them to come and nominate you. You have to pay them to elect you. How much is that unless you are a very rich man? It's very expensive. Me, when I was a member of Westlands here, which was a constituency in town, I never used to spend a lot of money. Mudomo too. I used to go around campaigning for my presidential candidate. I come for 1 week, I call people, naambia sasa kujeni, tupange, and the people just vote for me. Today, it's not going to be easy, I'm telling you.
And you're saying we are very likely...
And that's the moment you buy leadership, the moment you pay for leadership, you will never be able to do what you promised.
Okay. This election, one of the major factors that will see either candidate win this election or any of those candidates win this election is the money factor. But Kenyans, as you said, have to be paid to get to vote, to get to register and all that. What kind of leaders do you think we are going to get in 2022? Which kind of a leader are we going to get in 2022?
Well, I would, the thing is, I would have asked Kenyans to give it a thought, give it a bit of time. Most of these leaders have been, they also want to be presidents today, have been in leadership for a long time. Some of them have money, some of them don't have money. But we must now start thinking of what sort of leaders we are going to elect. That's the only appeal I can make to Kenyans. Because if we put money ahead of everything, because this money, first of all, does not reach many people. Only the leaders are the ones who get, and then they give very little to the voters. But we must now begin thinking, how do we change the minds of the people? Because you have seen the registration. For 1 month, we are not even to get 20-25%. That shows the problem we have. And I'm telling you, even the turnout during election time will not be more than 30%. Most of these people you see shouting in some of these public meetings will not line for the whole day to vote for free. They won't. Unless we change their minds, which is not going to be very easy in 9 months.
Who are you? Have you made up your mind, because you're still a voter, you're a citizen of Kenya, have you made up your mind on the kind of leader that you want in 2022 going forward?
Of course, I'm a voter, and I know all these people. I know them all, and I know whom I'm going to vote for. Because I want a leader, a mature leader, who can calm this country down. This country where it is now, if we don't get somebody who can make it cool down a little bit, so that we begin thinking, because all we are making are just promises. Promises. And you see, promises, you can promise anything. But they should revisit the promises they had some time back and see how much has been implemented. Then they would know. But this idea of blaming each other, oh, this one has come, he has done this, what not, this one is I don't know what, his character is like this, that's not going to help us. We want leadership that can develop this country, that can make this country grow, that can create employment. Not leadership just because the moment you become a president, you're in a tosha. No.
Who is that leader for you? Currently, we have about 6 presidential we have aspirants, about 3 of them, and candidates, about 3 of them who have run, but there are several aspirants. I mean, you are a voter, you're a veteran in this country. Who would that leader be for you if you had to choose? If the election was to be held tomorrow, who would you vote for and why?
Well, the thing is this. You know, voting is a secret. I don't want to tell you that I'm going to vote for Swans. I don't think that's
okay.
Good,
describe that leader for us. If you don't want to mention a name, describe that leader for us.
No, what I'm saying is that today we need somebody who can, first of all, who can calm the country. Secondly, who can develop, serious development. Not just promises. Somebody who cares about the people. Somebody who wants this country to grow. Some of them I know are there and they have talked and talked and talked. And gave me promises. But I'm sure they cannot fulfill those promises. Because they have promised us before. So it is the moment you have a leader who is not selfish. Because the moment you are selfish, people who are selfish are the ones, when they get opportunity, they can even stick to leadership. Because they want it for themselves. We want people who are committed to development of this country. Me, when I was in politics, I always told my people that when I get to 65, I will retire. And when I got to 65, I retired. And I'm telling you, even today, if I walk in Nairobi here, or even in my constituency, Westlands here, I'm still admired. Because I told them I'm going to retire, and I retired. Because I was not selfish. What do I need? I have just a small stomach. I can only spend, if for my own personal meal, I can hardly spend 2,000 shillings a day. So I'm not selfish at all. But other people, they want more than they can swallow. I don't know what for. Maybe for, well, I don't know. So if you have leaders who are like that, ask yourself. That's why much earlier, before even this constitution, we had to declare what we had before we stood for elections. Everybody had to declare how much he had, and people declared, but nobody followed it up. If you said you were worth maybe 50 million shillings, you had only one flat or an apartment, or you didn't have an apartment in Nairobi. How come now you have 10,000 acres, I mean 2 or 3, 4,000 acres of land? How come you today have 5, 6, 7 houses or 6, 7, 8 flats, blocks of flats in Nairobi in 5 years? You see? And people know these things. But the problem is poverty. If somebody comes and gives you 2,000 bob and you didn't eat last night, what do you do? In my language, we say, the person who gives you to eat beats your mother and you are watching. In Luya, we say that. Somebody who feeds you will beat your mother and you are watching and you cannot protect her. Because if you protect her, he will not give you anything. He will not give you money anymore. You see my point?
Yes.
It's like what's happening today.
The media has been accused of saying this is a two-horse race between Raila Odinga and Deputy President William Ruto. Do you think there's a third force that can come between them?
Well, it is possible to get a third force, but time is running out. There is this third force, which is it's called what?
OKA. One Kenya Alliance. One Kenya Alliance.
One Kenya Alliance. We only have maybe 9 months to go, and they have not even made up their mind whom they want to support. So people who are already ahead are the deputy president and the former prime minister. By the time these people decide, it might be too late. Because people are already taking positions. And in politics, the moment somebody has taken a position, to make him change, it's not going to be easy. And you see also, I don't know who is serious among those people. I don't know who is serious because they don't look, to me, they don't look serious. They're still joking. In politics, you must make up your mind and take off. Because I'll tell you this. You see, Raila is a very good friend of mine. We are very good friends. At one time, he didn't want to stand this time. He was not interested. He wanted to support somebody else. But now you tell me, after he has now run ahead and he has seen that he still has support, do you think he's going to turn around and support somebody else? He won't. So it's very, very likely that people who will be ahead will be two. Very likely. Because these ones are going to talk. After maybe another 2 months, they will not have decided, and these guys will be gone, Buana.
You are a student of, perhaps I would say you're a student of the late President Moi. William Ruto, the deputy president, is a student of Moi, also a student of Raila, worked with Raila in ODM. You have worked with all these people. Now, it is also said that if the elections were called today, William Ruto would win the election.
If elections are called today?
Yes.
Hello? Well, I don't know, because you see, we have had elections several times, and Raila has run about 3 times, I think, and he has been always he has always been very strong and had a lot of support. And in most times, we thought he had won. But it never happened. So the crowds, sometimes the crowds can cheat you. Even when we were campaigning, we used to have the biggest crowds. Some of these people sometimes don't even have voters' cards. So you might think, because of the people shouting, or if you have, like, we used to have people coming and shouting because we had sent their people, they had demobilized, maybe given T-shirts and a bit of finance, and we would assume that all those people would vote for us. They never did it. Even Moi, we used to go to Central Province, find crowds, Buana, full, big. But when it came to voting, we hardly got even 10%. So it's difficult to tell sometimes. It's still too early. People can change even in 2 weeks.
Okay. Okay.
And go for somebody else, somebody that you don't even expect. So I cannot predict that Ruto will win or Raila, because I don't know.
Okay. You said something very interesting. I'd just like to take you back a little bit. You said most of those elections you thought Raila Odinga had won, and he did not win. There is no election that, in your mind, Raila Odinga won in this country.
Well, the thing is this. I'm not saying that he did not win. He could have won. Because there are a lot of strange things that happened during counting time. But you see, the thing is this, if you don't get it, even if you are snatched, then you have not won, isn't it? Because somebody else takes it from you. But there are a lot of strange things that used to happen during election time. We were sitting, then things just happened mysteriously, and it's announced that he has lost.
Okay. Let's talk about the deep state. What is this deep state? One of the governors on Citizen TV about 3, 4, or even a month ago talked about the deep state and talked about who determines who wins the election in this country. Is that a factor?
My earphones have dropped. Just 1 minute.
Oh, okay, we'll let you fix them.
Yes?
Yes. That's okay? All right, as we wait for help for the former Member of Parliament for Westlands constituency, former Minister, Cabinet Minister Fred Gumo to get ready to speak to us. Let's wait for that. He's talking to us about the election in 2022, the pulse of the nation, calling on more informed choice in terms of voting, in terms of choosing the next candidate, and also talking to us about the weaknesses of our political system, weaknesses of our constitution, and perhaps the changes that will be needed if at all it has to work. So Gumo is coming back. We're waiting for him to fix the earpiece. Once we have him back, we'll be speaking to him again on that. Definitely very important. Is it okay now? All right, so we're still waiting for that earpiece to be fixed. But tonight on News Hour, we are having former Westlands Member of Parliament, Fred Gumo, speaking to us. However, as we wait for that, let's do a story here that is important. Also, the wave of unrest in public secondary schools that has once again revealed the government's inability to address a recurring challenge that has been ongoing for decades. Now, several task force reports highlights the key causes of school unrest and indiscipline cases among students, especially during the second time. While the government appears to yield to the learners' pressure by offering them a midterm break, experts and stakeholders have pointed out that the measure taken by the government could still fall short of addressing the real problem. Shadrach Miti explains why.
The latest fire incidents in secondary schools could have pushed the government and other stakeholders back to the drawing board, seeking to find a lasting solution. However, the fires and other unruly behaviors by secondary school learners in public schools did not start today. For over 30 years, the government has been battling the same problem, although under different circumstances.
Why can't we now say, because this problem is already seen and is manifested, we borrow a leave from international schools, from private schools? We've never had most of these things happening in the private schools. Why only in the public schools?
Dr. Lawrence Sagini Task Force report of 1991 listed the causes of student unrest as lack of role models, overloaded school curricula, communication breakdown between the students and the administration, inadequate guidance and counseling services, inadequate school inspection services, and the negative impact of Western values on the African traditional values, among other things. 10 years later, in 2000, PM Mashari report was released highlighting causes, effects, and remedies of indiscipline in secondary schools in Central Province. The report listed inadequate quantity or quality of food, attempt to change long-established school traditions, drug abuse, fear of examinations and poor results, school administrative styles, corporal punishment, lack of recreation facilities, low supply of amenities such as electricity and water, and strict school rules and poor parenting as some of the causes of unrest.
In our country, we have got so many super policies, but they are never acted upon. You find a task force, a lot of investment is put in it, good work is done by professionals who are not biased at all, but when it is tabled or maybe brought to the field, it is never acted upon.
In 2001, another report by Dr. Naomi Wangai on student discipline and unrest in secondary schools was released, citing cultural conflicts, influence of opinion leaders, parents abdicating their duties, moral decay, deteriorating levels of nationalism, images of violence, rejection of some head teachers, and devil worshipping as the leading causes of school unrest.
How are we as parents being good role models? How are most of our teachers being good role models? Has the government trained teachers how to deal with these things in details in our boarding schools before we can come up with this.
In 2016, the National Crimes Research Center undertook a research focusing on problem of the recurrence of student unrest, violence, and particularly the banning of secondary schools in the second term. The research findings by the National Crimes Research Center revealed that the underlying cause of recurrence of student unrest and violence is as a result of the convergence of many factors, finding expression in second term. And that second term is always a simmering problem and major ticking bomb in secondary schools, waiting for a small trigger, which could lead to escalation of frustration, resulting in ugly scenes of student unrest, violence, and criminal arson. In its 2016 report, the Center recommended for profiling, tracking, and sharing information on cases of student indiscipline across secondary schools in Kenya. The Center particularly called for the establishment of a national student offender profiling system to monitor inter-school transfer of students with criminal behavior as the sure way to curb the transfer of criminal acts and anarchy across schools. Shadrach Miti, KTN News.
All right, Shadrach Miti reporting there on the perennial school unrest and why the students are banning schools and, of course, the reports that the government has acted on. We're back with the News Hour, and Fred Gumo, former Westlands Member of Parliament and also Cabinet Minister, is still with us to speak to us about the pulse of the nation heading into the 2022 general election. We now have you back, and let me pick it with the deep state. Who is this deep state, Fred? Who is deep state? And Governor Kimemia said that perhaps it's those who determine who wins this election. Do you believe that?
Well, deep state could mean people who are close to the authorities, because they don't have necessarily to be civil servants. There are people who are close to the authorities, who can advise, who can talk directly to maybe the head of state and other very powerful people. But about determining who wins an election, it is not very easy for them to determine that it must be so and so. But as you know, if elections are very, very close, if they are very, very close, then anything can happen. But if it's not, then, well, because you see, election is an election. So I don't think the deep state would be very much involved directly with elections. They might want somebody else, but he might not be strong enough to win an election. But in every government, there are people who make, in Europe sometimes they call it kitchen cabinet. They sometimes even decide on who should be appointed, or who should take what. But there are certain things which are not very easy for them to make a decision on. They're just human beings who happen to be very, very close. Because if you can be given an ear, then you could be part of that deep state.
In 2002, you were part of the political fraternity when the late President Moi announced Uhuru Kenyatta as a presidential candidate for Kano, as preferred presidential candidate for Kano, and he went ahead and he didn't win that election. Now is again that talk again in town that the president should name his successor, and in fact the president said he shall not leave the country in unsafe hands.
Well, you see, the president has his own opinion. And you cannot underrate the president's statement. You cannot underrate the president because, you see, there's a very big difference between President Kibaki and the others. I mean, President Uhuru and the others. Because Uhuru is a young man. And he has got a following also. You cannot underrate him. So he can also have his own liking because he's a voter. And if he thinks that you are not somebody who doesn't respect him, he might not vote for you, or he can even campaign against you. Because in other states you have seen former presidents campaigning against, for candidates. They have been going around in some places. So he is free to advise his supporters or people or his followers, not really supporters but followers, that I would prefer so and so. And he's free. He's a citizen of this country. He's free to do that.
He's free to choose a candidate he wants to support. I'll give you an abstract.
Not to choose, but
yes.
But he can tell people that I would prefer so and so. I support so and so. There's nothing wrong with that.
Would it work? Would it work if he chose a candidate, and how would that be received?
He doesn't have to choose. He can only support. It can work or not work. I don't know, but you see, a president also has his own. You see, when Moi supported, chose Uhuru, he supported him and he took him around and introduced him to people, isn't it? So maybe they decided not to. Wananchi decided not to support Uhuru at that time, but they could have supported him also, if they wanted. But supporters of Moi supported Uhuru that time.
The next election, how will it be won? On coalitions, on individuals?
Well, I don't know. But you see, coalitions make things easier. Because majority of the people, majority of these candidates have got their own followers. And if they agree with the other candidates, chances are that they can win. So, for example, these people of Oka, if they decide to support one candidate, of course, he will be a lot stronger. You see? So coalitions are extremely important because we have had it before. When I was in the ODM, we had a lot of coalitions, and most of these guys who are now in Oka supported ODM. Now they are on their own. So I don't know, but it's important that sometimes when you know you cannot make it, it's better to support somebody else. It's easier. This idea of saying I must lazima nifike kwa debe, to do what there if you can't win? Support somebody else, make a coalition, let people benefit through both of you. It's better that way, I think.
They have supported one candidate, especially Musalia Mudavadi. Kalonzo Musyoka has run with Raila Odinga twice. Now they're saying they want to be supported. Musalia Mudavadi is adamant. He's saying he will go to the ballot. Kalonzo Musyoka wants to be in the ballot. Gideon Moi has been endorsed by his party, wants to be on the ballot. I mean, everyone wants to be on the ballot on the 9th of August next year. What is the likely scenario if that was supposed to happen?
Well, the thing is this. There might be others also whom you don't know who might also be on the ballot. Those are the ones who are talking, who are saying. But normally we always have some quiet people who also come up later and stand as presidential candidates. But being on the ballot is not very important. That anybody can be. What's the most important thing is that can you win? Because you can be on the ballot and you don't matter. So what they should be thinking about is how many votes can they get? Because if you are on the ballot and you get maybe 20,000 or 50 or 100, that's not worth it. You would rather give those 100,000 votes to somebody else to win. You see, I'll give you an example. When Raila supported Kibaki, he knew very well that if he gives support to Kibaki, then Kibaki can win. And in the process, his people will benefit. And maybe he thought if he stands, that Kibaki stands, that Uhuru stands, he might not win. So that's how you look at things. So even these other candidates, if they are really serious, they should not be talking of getting to the debe. Mtu wewe unasimama kura na unasema unataka kufika kwa debe, you can get there. Anybody can get there. What matters is that, okay, are you going to win or you are going to waste people's time? That's the most important thing. And that's why I have told you before that it's better for them to decide on one person today and don't waste their time, people's time anymore. Because none of them can win on his own.
Okay. What would you tell them? Would you tell them to support a candidate, the Oka, and forget about it? Or would you tell them, like you're saying, to choose a candidate and rally behind them?
Well, if they are serious, then they should choose a candidate.
You don't think they're serious?
Huh? Are they serious? If they were serious, they would not be talking like that. Now, if you take for example, me, I've come from Western, isn't it? Originally. I come from Luhya land. Now, what do you think if you have 3 candidates from Western? 3. We have Musalia, we have Weta, now we have Jirongo.
Muhisa Kitui, you have forgotten.
Out of
Muhisa.
that Oka, yes, and we have Muhisa Kitui.
Yes.
On Oka we have 3.
Yes.
Then we have Muhisa Kitui. Huh? Are these people really serious? Even the Luyas themselves are confused because the moment you don't have one person, you have already divided the whole area, the whole community. Because each one of them has a handful of supporters. How do you win? You see, they should have formed one party long time ago, and today people from Western maybe would be thinking of supporting one person. But now you have 4. And they say they want to win. How can they win? And they say we are going to think about. I just heard it on news now that Weta is going to declare, I don't know, this weekend as a presidential candidate. Do you think these people are serious, really? But I've already declared the other day. Now Weta is doing. Jirongo maybe will do. Now Muhisa Kitui. They put people of Western in a very awkward position.
Okay.
Because none of them can win as long as they are divided the way they are going.
Okay. Western Kenya has a huge voting bloc. So is Nyanza region, so is Central Kenya. I'm coming back to talk to you. My final question to you will be on the swing vote. They say Central Kenya or the Mount Kenya region that is not fielding a strong candidate right now will be the swing vote. However, look at the forays of Deputy President William Ruto in Western Kenya. So when we come back, I'll finish with that question. But first, let's play the video of the week because one of the candidates is not in the country, is not campaigning. Deputy President is going across the country campaigning, but Raila Odinga is in Dubai in his official capacity as an AU official. Let's take a look at our video of the week. That was our video of the week. He's not only done